So I made kind of like a joke video last week essentially about how, I'm always side-eyeing people when they say that like one type or one system of astrology is like inherently superior to other types of systems of astrology. And inevitably, I kind of like knew it was going to happen, but someone brought up axial precession. And I thought I'd just kind of give like my opinion on this and why this doesn't negate the fact that both tropical and sidereal astrology are valid systems to work within. So first of all, I guess I'll explain kind of the key differences between a sidereal system of astrology versus a tropical system of astrology. I mainly work in the tropical system. I'm not as familiar with the sidereal system, but essentially the sidereal zodiac actually uses the constellations as the zodiac itself. Like the constellations in the sky are essentially the band of the zodiac. Whereas in the tropical Western system, what you have is you have a symbolic band of the zodiac that is based off of the seasonal cycle, essentially, right? And so where does precession fit into all of this? But first, I guess I should talk about what precession of the equinoxes even is. I'm not like an astronomer or like an astrophysicist or anything, so take what I say about this with a grain of salt. But essentially, what precession of the equinoxes is it refers to like this thing that happens where the Earth is essentially not just rotating around the sun, but it's also kind of doing this little, they call it a wobble. So it's like if it's tilted on its axis like this, over time, eventually it'll like kind of rotate around, almost like a spinning top. So its axis is actually pointed in the opposite direction. And this is called precession of the equinoxes, and it's kind of caused by like the gravitational force exerted on the Earth by like the sun and the moon. It causes it to wobble. Again, like very basic, very like, I'm sure there's people better than me that can explain it better, right? But basically, because of precession of the equinoxes, what ends up happening is that the tropical zodiac that we use in Western tropical astrology essentially gets kind of like wonky, and it sort of doesn't align any longer with the sidereal zodiac. The sidereal zodiac being the actual constellations in the sky, right? Because we're shifting on our axis, right? So it doesn't really line up very nicely, right? And so people will kind of use this argument about the fact that sidereal systems account for precession of the equinoxes, right? They account for this shifting of the Earth, right? Whereas tropical systems don't account for that. And that's kind of why, you get, like, if you're an astrologer, you've probably gotten people in your comment sections being like, oh, but axial precession this, axial precession that, all of this stuff, right? Because it's kind of like the tropical zodiac isn't seen as a real tangible thing in the way that the sidereal zodiac is, right? The sidereal zodiac is like more accurate. And to me, that is just not the case, because both systems are symbolic systems, all right? The tropical system, as I said at the start-ish of this video, is a symbolic band that represents the seasons, right? The sidereal zodiac is a symbolic representation of the stars. What do I mean by this? I mean, the constellations are not real. That's what I mean. Constellations aren't any more real than a symbolic band of seasons, of the seasons, right? Those two things are both like, there is no, I don't know how to tell you this. There's no actual like big spoon in the sky or like bear in the sky or whatever, like Ursa Major or like Cassiopeia. It's supposed to be a W, I think, but like it kind of looks like an E or like whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the fact that we see these stars and we have projected images onto the stars, that is a construct that is made up. We just like made it up. Like, so it's really confusing to me when people sit here and pretend that like sidereal systems are like somehow not symbolic and are somehow more literal. And it's like, I mean, I guess to a certain extent you could say like the stars are like real or whatever, but it's like the star could have blown up and like we're still seeing its light, but it's not actually there, type of thing. So like, is it still influencing us if we can see it's a light? Is it not? But then it's like, do you see what I'm saying? And also, the thing is, with most sidereal systems, aside from something that's like true sidereal astrology, which I would still argue is symbolic because, again, the constellations are symbolic. They're symbols. They're literally just like images that we have created, right? But most sidereal systems, like the Vedic system that we see used, are also, they also divide the zodiac, right? The sidereal zodiac, so the actual constellations themselves, into 30 degrees each, right? 30 degrees of like a 360-degree circle. When in actuality, the constellations themselves can take up more than 30 degrees or less than 30 degrees, right? If you were to like represent the whole sky in like a 360-degree circle, right? Some of them would actually take up more than that 30-degree space. But in both systems, generally, again, speaking general terms here, you get 30 degrees of 12 signs each in the sidereal and the tropical system, which again is not like if you go out into the sky, you're not going to see that. You're going to see that some constellations are way bigger than others. So that's my rant. That's my rant, is that both systems are symbolic systems because, like we made up the symbolic band of the 12 zodiac signs, we also made up the constellations that are used in the sidereal zodiac. They're both symbolic. So it's just very weird that people, to me, see the sidereal zodiac as more valid than the other system. I don't know. Anyways.